Hello, I am Rodal. I was born in the United Kingdom. You know me as a writer. Well, I'm much more than just a writer. I was a spy in World War II. I spied on the Roosevelts. I also was a fighter pilot in the Royal Air Force, also in World War II. Growing up was tough. My dad had one arm, and when I was 4, my sister died at 7 years old. Shortly after that, my dad died. In 1924, me and 3 other friends went to a candy shop, and we put a dead mouse in one of the candy jars there because nobody liked the person who worked there. After that, they ran off. But the next day, standing there was the old crabby lady who worked at the candy shop and their teacher. The old crabby lady pointed out 5 boys she suspected that did it, and she guessed right. And me and my other friends got caned, so my mom took me out of school because she did not like what the teacher did. A little after that, my mom got a car. My sister proudly took the wheel, but sadly we crashed. My nose was only attached by a thread, but luckily the doctor was able to stitch it back on. I was 6 feet tall and very good at sports. I went to 2 boarding schools in my life. The first one, let's see, right after the mouse problem. Then we moved to a beautiful house in Wales. But there, I was more than ready to leave, so I went to another boarding school. There, my mom died. Also at that school, I won the school boxing cup. After that, I was a fighter pilot. I crashed in the desert lands of Africa because of low fuel. Luckily, the plane behind me was able to get me back up in the air. In that career as a fighter pilot, I shot down 5 enemy planes. A few fun facts about me. I hate people with beards. It seems like they're hiding something. My first language was Norwegian and then English. In Dar es Salaam, I killed a black mamba with a hockey stick. My most famous books are Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, and The Twits, and Fantastic Mr. Fox and the Magic Finger. Sadly, I died November 23rd, 1990 in New England. And that's it.
Hello, my name is Isaac Newton. I was born January 4th, 1643 in the Woolsthorpe Manor House in England. I attended an everyday elementary school and moved on to Truro University. I was interested in physics, mathematics, and astronomy. I formed the theory of gravity, which is an invisible force that pulls things to the object that has the gravitational force. I also formed my very own laws. My first law is an object at rest will remain at rest until a certain force acts upon it. Here's an example. Say if I have a ball and a golf club, I hit it, the ball will stay in a constant velocity in the absence of an unbalanced force. This means if there's no frictional or any other force, the ball would never stop. We always see that everyday balls, when you throw them, they come to a stop. That's because the force of friction makes them stop, proving my law. My second law states that the rate change of momentum of an object is directly proportional to the unbalanced force and the direction of force. Here's an example. So say if I have a human on roller skates and I push the human, it will be a lot easier to push the human because it is a lot lighter. Say if I have a horse on roller skates. If I push the horse will be a lot harder to push because it weighs more. In the end, I felt like I had contributed to society in a huge way, and I died at age 84. For I am Sir Isaac Newton. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
2.
Hi, I'm Albert Einstein. I was born in Ulm, Germany, March 14, 1879. I died April 18, 1955 in New Jersey. I was one of the greatest scientists. I created the first atomic bomb. My father is Hermann Einstein. My mom is Pauline Einstein. I lived in Germany. I was born to Jewish parents, and I was one of I didn't do well in school, but I took interest in science and mathematics. I had a 1,427 FBI file. I paid my wife my prize money for a divorce. I married the only female in my physics class. I had a bachelor's degree and I went to Zurich University. I created a stir by publishing 5 major research papers. I spent so much of my time researching relativity, investing space, time, matter, and energy. To this day, I'm still known for my theories.
Hello, my name is Amelia Earhart. I was born in Atchison, Kansas, July 24th, 1897, and I grew up in my hometown, Atchison, Kansas, with my parents, Amelia Otis Earhart and Samuel Stanton Earhart. The first time I got in a plane was 1920, and I knew I wanted to fly one of my own. So my mom, sister, and I decided to raise money for me to get my own plane. It was yellow, and I called it the Yellow Canary. As soon as my father found out that I wanted to fly, he left. My mother, sister, and I, he just disappeared, not into thin air, but he just left. I crashed many times, but that never stopped me from trying. And eventually, I wanted to be the first person to fly all the way around the world. It took a lot of practice, and still, I did not succeed. Let me share some fun facts about me. My nickname was Mealy. I built my own roller coaster. I was the 16th woman to get my pilot's license. I was the first woman to travel across the Atlantic. I disappeared over the Pacific. I flew solo halfway across the Pacific. I was the first woman to fly nonstop across the Atlantic. I am the subject of many books. My last radio call was that I was running low on fuel, and I crashed later that day. I was declared dead January 5th, 1939, over the Pacific. Thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Franklin. I was born January 17th, 1706 in Boston, Massachusetts. One thing I'm known for is being a good inventor. My dad is Josiah Franklin and my mom is Abia Folger. I went to school at the Boston Latin School. Some things I invented are the lightning rod, Franklin's stove, glass harmonica, bifocals, hand paddle, and the electrostatic machine. Some facts about me are I only had 2 years of formal education. I created my own phonetic alphabet. I'm one of the only people that is not president to be on a US dollar bill. I was an inventor but never patented an invention. I was the first Postmaster General of the United States. I died April 17th, 1790 in Philadelphia because of a sickness. I was 84 years old.
Hello, my name is Sally Ride. I was the first American woman astronaut. People thought I had blown up on the Challenger explosion on January 28, 1986. But that was teacher Christina McAuliffe. My parents' names were Carol Joyce Wright and Dale Bertle Ride. And I also had a sister named Karen Ride. My sister and I were born in and grew up in Anuncio, California, where we were encouraged to follow our interests by our parents. I attended the Stanford University where I earned a bachelor's arts degree in English, a bachelor of science degree in physics, a master's degree in physics, and a PhD. After I finished college, I had recently seen an article in the newspaper that NASA wanted people to apply to be a space trainee for their program. After I saw that article, I knew I wanted to apply for it. After I applied, NASA had told me I was in for it, and that I had beat out 1,000 applicants for the job. After that, I kept training and then became the first American woman astronaut. My first mission was the STS-7 with 4 other crewmates on June 18th, 1983. 3 years later was the Challenger explosion, killing 5 astronauts and 2 payload specialists. That was the explosion people thought I had died on, but it wasn't. I had died in 2012 from pancreatic cancer. Here are fun facts about me. 1. I was inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame and the Astronauts Hall of Fame. 2. I was married for a time to a fellow NASA astronaut, Stephen Hawley. 3. I wrote a number of science books for children, including Mission Planet Earth and Exploring Our Solar System. 4. I met President Obama in 2013. in 2010. And here are some props from when I did tennis.
Hello there, my name is Susan B. Anthony. I was born on Tuesday, February 15th, 1820 in Adams, Massachusetts. My father was a liberal Quaker abolitionist and at many times a shoe keeper. And my mother was just an in-house mother. My sisters were Gulma, Hannah, Mary, and Eliza, and my brothers were Merritt and Daniel. As for my parents, my mother's name was Lucy Reed Anthony, and my father's name was Daniel Anthony. In 1826, my family and I moved to Battenville, New York. When I turned 16, I started to teach and took small jobs near my home. But soon I decided to continue my own education. So my father enrolled me in Deborah Moslin's Female Seminary, which is a boarding school in Philadelphia. But I left when I was 17 due to the Panic of 1837. My family was forced to sell most of our belongings in an auction, which were saved only when my uncle Joshua Reed bought them. Soon later, we moved again, this time to Center Falls. That same year, I left home to teach and help pay off my father's debts. Then my father had my family move again in 1845 to a small farm in Gates. During the 1850s, I became highly interested in women's rights. Soon, I met Elizabeth Cady Stanton in Seneca Falls. In 1854, I decided to start some petition drives for women's rights, which included going door to door and getting signatures to present to the legislature. From 1856 all the way up to the Civil War, I was the principal New York agent for the American Anti-Slavery Society. In 1868, Stanton and I began to publish a newspaper for women's rights called The Revolution, which originated in New York City. Later, in 1869, we decided to form the National Women's Suffrage Association. For the next 30 years, I decided to travel across the country making speeches supporting women's suffrage and women's rights. In 1872, I decided to vote in the presidential election, even though it got me arrested and tried. Then, sadly, in March of 1906, Rochester, New York, I died shortly after heart failure.
Hi, my name is Edmund Hillary. I was born on July 20th, 1919 in Auckland, New Zealand. I had an older sister named June and a younger brother named Rex. My mother, Gertrude Hillary, worked as a teacher, and my father, Percival Augustus Hillary, worked as a newspaper writer. When I was older, I studied math and science at the University of Auckland. When I was 16 years old, I started getting interested in climbing mountains. At age of 20, I climbed my first major mountain. In 1948, I scaled New Zealand's highest mountain, which gave me the courage to climb Mount Everest. In 1953, I went on an expedition to Everest with my climbing partner, Tenzing Norgay. We were the first people to summit Mount Everest. After accomplishing my climb of Everest, I spent my life in the Himalayas building schools, hospitals, and bridges. I died on January 11th, 2008, from a heart attack in the Auckland, New Zealand hospital. Here's a few fun facts about me. I was 6 feet tall. I was 6 feet tall and 5 inches. I was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II after summiting Mount Everest. I'm also on the $5 bill in Auckland, New Zealand.
I'm Amelia Earhart. I was born July 24th, 1892. I grew up in Kansas City with my mother, Amelia Otis Earhart, my father, Samuel Stachin Earhart, and my sister, Grace Mary Earhart. My father was a railroad layer. While my father was at work, I played basketball with my sister. I attended Columbia University, and then I went to nursing school. I went on my first plane ride in 1920. My mother, sister, and I raised enough money to get me my own plane. When my dad heard about the idea of me being a pilot, he left. When I got my plane, I named it the Yellow Canary. I passed my flight test in 1921. I was the 16th woman to get my pilot's license. I was the first woman to fly over the Atlantic Ocean.
On my way to Hawaiian Island, I disappeared over the Pacific Ocean on July 2nd, 1937. I ran out of fuel and crashed, but I inspired many people. President Obama sent 9 military ships and 22 airplanes to find me. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Edward Abbey. I was born on January 29th, 1927 in Indiana, Pennsylvania. I was an American author and essayist. My father was a fully committed socialist. The worst part of my childhood was the economic depression of the early 1930s. Our family moved from place to place as my father, Paul Revere Abbey, searched for work as a real estate agent. As me, son of a Pennsylvania farmer, I earned a Bachelor of Arts in 1951 and a Master of Arts in 1956 at the University of New Mexico, both in philosophy. After college, I worked as National Park Ranger and fire lookout for Arches National Park. I acknowledged that people had been ruining the environment and did a lot of research in the forbidden wilderness of southeastern Utah. I admitted that. I've written much about many good places, but the best places of all I've never mentioned. My book talks about this conclusion, Monkey Wrench Gang. This book was a very popular book that adds characteristics of fictional people that supposedly were real people with different names. The book talks about these people coming together and attack those attacking the wild. Another book in the environmental movement is Desert Solitaire. I died in my own home in Tucson, Arizona on March 14th, 1989 from complications from surgery. I suffered days of bleeding into my esophagus. That caused liver cirrhosis, which is a late stage of scarring of the liver caused by liver diseases. I was buried as requested in a sleeping bag without embalming fluid or casket. My body surreptitiously inherited in an unmarked desert grave somewhere in Arizona. People to this day are still trying to find my grave. I had a good life and I hope nature will change one day. The end.
Hi, my name is Mary Jackson. I was born on April 5th, 1921, Hampton, Virginia.
My name is Katherine Johnson. I was born in August 26, 1918, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia.
I'm Dorothy Vaughn. I was born on September 20th, 1910 in Kansas City, Missouri.
I grew up in a family of 3. Myself, my father, Frank Winston, and my mother, Ella Winston.
I was the youngest of 4 children. I had 2 brothers, Horace and Charles. I also had a sister, Margaret. My mother is Joyla Coleman, and my father, Joshua Coleman.
I was an only child. My mother was Annie Johnson and my father was Leonard Johnson. At age 7, my family moved to Morgantown, West Virginia.
For middle school, I went to a private high school. For high school, I went to the Phoenix High School. I graduated from Hampton University, majoring in mathematics.
I started high school when I was 10 years old. Soon I graduated from college when I was 18. My college was West Virginia State College. I studied mathematics.
I graduated from Beechers High School in 1925. 4 years later, I received a bachelor's degree in science from Wilberforce University in Ohio.
After I graduated, I got a job as a bookkeeper and secretary. 1 year later, I met my husband, Levy Jackson. He was a sailor in the U.S. Navy. We married in November 1944. On October 15th, 1946, my son was born. We named him Levy. For the next 5 years, we lived a happy life. Little did I know I would make history.
My first husband was named James Francis Goble. My second husband was named James A. Johnson. I have 3 children, Jolette Goble, Constance Goble, and Catherine Goble.
In 1932, I married Howard Vaughn. We later had 6 children, Leonard, Kenneth, Mida, Anne, Michael, and Donald. For the next 11 years, I was a math teacher at Robert Rush Mountain High School in Farmville, Virginia.
In 1951, I applied for a job at NASA as a computer scientist. Of course, my quick mind for math helped. For 7 years, I helped in the aerospace engineering division. When someone asked me why I was not an engineer, I said, "Sir, that's impossible, being a African American female." And he asked me if I was a white man, would I? I said I would already be one, so I applied. It took a lot of work, but I never gave up. So in 1958, after all my hard work, I became an engineer. Upon becoming an engineer, I specialized in the boundary layer on all vehicles going at supersonic speed. That layer is called the lunar layer. It protects the astronauts and aircraft from exploding.
I worked for NASA 30 plus years in 1962. In 1962, the United States wanted to send people to the moon. NASA used my math and it worked. Later, my math helped astronauts to the moon and back safely. I retired in 1986.
One day, while I was at the post office scanning the jobs that were plastered with job ads, I saw a job for laundry, and it paid better than my job as a teacher. But as I was walking out, the word mathematics caught my eye. The ad was for NACA. I put in 2 applications, one for the laundry and one for the job at NACA. I got both jobs, but chose the one at NACA. In 1953, I began working for NACA. I worked with the West Computing Group for most of my career. When our supervisor fell ill and resigned, I was appointed to be our temporary supervisor. In 1949, I became the first colored supervisor. In 1959, NACA desegregated and became NASA. We then bought an IBM computer. I taught myself the language and used with computers and worked with the machine until I retired in 1971 at age 69.
In 1961, the Soviet space program launched Luna 2, making them the first to orbit the Earth. That's when the race to the moon started globally. After 8 years of testing and arguing, we finally got the recipe of success right and completed Apollo 11, in my opinion, a beautifully engineered aircraft. On July 16, 1969, after all the correct coordinates and launch patterns, we made history. Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin marched onto Apollo 11 at 7:32 a.m. They set off, traveling 240,000 miles in less than 72 hours. Apollo entered the moon's orbit on July 19th. On July 24th, 1969, 3:17 p.m., they landed on the moon. The three spent a total of 21 hours and 36 minutes on the moon. On July 24th, the three returned back to Earth. That day, we made history. Now back to my life. I worked at NASA for the next 26 years as an aerospace engineer. I retired in 1985 at the age 64. I lived a happy life. I lived a happy 19 years later. Sadly, I passed away at age 83 on February 11, 2005, in Hampton, Virginia. I was buried in the Bethnal Church Cemetery.
I passed away on February 24th, 2020 in Newport News, VA, Virginia retirement home, age 101.
I died in Hampton, Virginia on November 10th, 2008 at the age of 98.
Hi, my name is Leonardo da Vinci. I was born April 11th, 1452 in Vinci, Italy. My parents disowned me, so I had to live on my grandparents' farm. My parents' names were Sir Piero, my father, and my mother, Caterina. I received no formal education, but my father apprenticed me to Andrea del Verrocchio, a painter and sculptor. When I grew up, I made my most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. I made inventions and paintings that everyone likes. My inventions led to tanks, parachutes, helicopters, and many more. Here are 10 fun facts about me. Da Vinci is not a family name, it's an indicator of place of birth. My proper name is Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. In the shop, to make paint, they used to mix mortar, pastel, egg yolk, and other things for different colors. The people of Milan made a play about the planets celebrating the new dew. My notebooks had designs for cool things like shoes that walk on water. The handwriting in the notebooks were backwards. You had to hold the mirror up to them to read them. I like painting things in nature like birds, cows, rivers, and stuff like that. I made a painting called The Last Supper that flaked because I experimented with a new technique. I made a robot out of a suit of armor way before modern robots were made. I died May 2nd, 1519 in Clausewitz. I hope you had fun learning about my life.
Hello, my name is Arturo Schomburg. I was born in January 24th, 1874 in Puerto Rico. I'm known for rewriting the history of African American. I wanted the world to know the true history of Black. I helped build our country. Let me share some fun facts about myself. In 1896, I began teaching Spanish in New York, 1901 to 1906. I died in Madison Park Hospital, Brooklyn, New York on June 10th, 1938. And that's how I helped history.
Hi, my name is Irena Sandovala. I was born on February 15th, 1910 in Warsaw, Poland. My parents are Stanislaw and Janina. I was an only child. The thing that I am most famous for is saving the lives of over 2,500 Jewish children during World War II. Let me tell you more about my life. I grew up in Ottawa, a small town about 15 miles southeast of Warsaw, where there was a Jewish community. My father was a doctor who took care of sick and very poor Jews. He took care of patients that other doctors refused to treat, and he ended up dying from typhus. I was only 8 when he died, but before he died, he taught me to always help others in need. My father was so kind to the Jewish community that after he died, many of them helped pay for my education at the University of Warsaw. At the university, I studied Polish literature. I was suspended for 3 years because I protested the ways the university treated Jews poorly. At the beginning of the World War II, the Nazis invaded Warsaw and forced the Jewish people to live in the Warsaw Ghetto. I worked with a secret group of people called the Zagota, which was a Polish group that helped Jews. My duty was to protect the Jewish children, and my code name was Jolanta. I helped smuggle Jewish children out of the Warsaw Ghetto. I used many different methods to smuggle the children out of the ghetto. I smuggled children out in suitcases and potato sacks. I used ambulances so that the children could hide under the stretcher or pretend to be sick. I even trained a dog to bark whenever the children cried so that we wouldn't be discovered. Once the children were out of the ghetto, I found safe places for the children to live. I gave each Jewish child a new name to help protect their identity. I wrote the children's new Christian names along with their Jewish names on tissue paper and buried them in my friend's garden. My hope was that after the war, I could locate the children and reconnect them with their families. Sadly, most of the children's parents died in the war. I was caught by the Nazis and put in prison and tortured. They broke my feet and legs. I received a death sentence, and on the day I was going to be killed, the Zagota bribed a guard and rescued me. Because my life was in danger, I had to spend the rest of the war in hiding, just like the kids that I had smuggled out of the ghetto. I even had to miss my mother's funeral because I was in hiding. In 1999, I was unknown to the world. Some high school girls in Uniontown, Kansas, learned about me and wrote a play about my life called Life in a Jar. In
2001, the students traveled to Poland to meet me, and they were credited with rescuing my story for the world. People all over the world have seen the play about my life. The play was even performed for 200 of the children that I had rescued from the Warsaw Ghetto. Many people around the world think of me as a hero, and some have even given me awards. I never thought of myself as a hero. Sadly, I wish I could have done more. This regret will follow me to my death. In 2001, I died at the age of 98 in Warsaw, Poland.
Hi, my name is Coco Chanel. I was born August 19, 1883 in Saint-Marie, France. I was raised in an orphanage and never went to college. I started designing clothes. For women, they were comfortable and made for women. I liberated women from corset silhouette and made popular sporty, casual, chicky standard of style. I loved being creative. I opened my first shop in Paris in 1910, where I sold hats. Later in my life, I opened many stores and began selling clothes and perfume. Thanks to my revolutionary designing, women beginning wearing the little black dress. Even at age 70, I was still a fashionista. A few fun facts about me. Nuns taught me how to sew. I used to be a singer. I was a Nazi spy. I once said a girl should be two things, classy and fabulous. I passed away on January 10, 1911, at Hotel Ritz, Paris, France.
Hello, my name is Boudica, also known as the Warrior Queen. I was born during the smallpox pandemic in the 30 AD CE 48. When my parents died, I went to an orphanage for 4 years, and then I got adopted by a royal family. I lived there for 14 years. At the age of 18, my parents died and left me to be queen. When I was queen, the mighty Roman Empire said that no woman could ever be queen under Roman control. So I got together a tribe called the Iceni. I led a rebellion against the mighty Roman Empire. I greatly outnumbered my opponents, yet I still lost the war. I died by a Roman soldier named Hazu. He shot me with a bow and arrow at the age of 31. During the war, me and my daughters got captured. I was forced to walk naked in the streets, and my daughters were whipped. My name comes from the Celtic word Buddha, meaning bravery, victory, and teamwork. Now you can still see a beautiful bronze statue of me and my daughters riding in a magnificent horse-drawn carriage near Westminster Bridge. Now when you think of victory, you think of me. I brought peace to the world.
Hi, my name is Neil Peart, otherwise known as the King of Rock and Roll. Some people have stated me as the best drummer of all time. As the drummer and main lyricist for the band Rush, I guess you could say I led a full life. And that's exactly what I'm going to tell you about. Hasta la vista. I was born on September 12th, 1952, in Hamilton, Canada. The dairy farm that my parents owned was a small business. Even so, I grew up just like any other kid. I played outside, went to school, did some chores, etc., etc., etc. When I was 9, my parents moved to nearby St. Catharines, and it was there that I saw my first live concert. When I saw the drummer, drumsticks flying everywhere, banging the cymbals and making a tremendous racket, I was hooked. I instantly knew that that was what I wanted to do with my life. At age 13, I started taking drum lessons with local teacher Don George. Within 2 years, I was the main drummer for my high school band. Rare coincidence. After I graduated high school, I finally knew that my dream of becoming a drummer was almost reality. Therefore, I soon attended Berklee College of Music, and, after 4 years of studying, graduated with 1 musical degree. Finally, I was ready to get on with my life and become an excellent drummer. But that didn't happen very quickly. In 1982, I decided to move to Canada, for I was very upset with lack of success in the Canadian government. There, my life was as miserable as ever. For the next 5 months, I worked in a jewelry shop, using diamonds to gold. Soon, depressed and lonely, I headed back home. That was nearly the luckiest act of my life. A few weeks after I got back, an ad appeared in the newspapers. The band Rush was holding auditions for a new drummer. I seized my chance. On the day of the audition, I was the first one in line. The moment that I stepped on stage was probably the most energetic yet scariest moment of my entire life. Yet, when I stepped into the spotlight, a roar of laughter went up in the crowd, probably because I was wearing big gig shorts and carrying all of my stuff in garbage cans. Finally, after much debating, I was declared winner. My first performance with Rush was an enormous event. A mere 5,000 people came. I love motorcycles and insisted on riding them to every stop while I was on tour. Geddy Lee, most famously the frontman of Rush, was always worried that I'd end up in the middle of nowhere on the side of the road. You see, he wasn't wrong. One day while I was out riding, my cycle slipped on a piece of loose asphalt and I tumbled into a ditch. Ironically, I told absolutely no one about the incident for years, fearing what would happen if I did. In 1999, I retired from Rush, getting married and settling down in California once and for all, getting my passport for the USA 3 months afterwards. In 2002, I suffered a terrible blow. My best friend, Brutus D. Michael, was caught by authorities riding into the U.S. with some substances and they banned him from entering the USA for life. Suddenly, my riding buddy was gone, yet that was only the beginning. In 2009, my daughter, Selena, 19 years old, got in a terrible car accident and did not survive. In 2012, my ex-wife and soulmate, Jacqueline Taylor, died of lung cancer. Heartbroken, I went back to drumming. That led to incredible fame. My first show, a solo drum performance, sold 102,299 tickets. I continued my solo drumming career for the next 9 years, finally stopping when my doctor told me to take it easy. I died on January 7th, 2020, at my home in California with Alex Mileson, Geddy Lee, and my family by my side. It was only after my death that my parents and family revealed that I had died of brain cancer. During my lifetime, I donated nearly $100 million to charity. My name is Neil Peart, the professor of rock.
Hi, my name is Arturo. I was born in Puerto Rico, 1874. I really liked collecting books about Black history. I collected over 10 million books. I found that many books were about Black people were not correct. I spent my whole life correcting the books. I died in June 10th, 1938 in California, the age of 64.
Hello, my name is Martin Luther King Jr. I was born on July 15, 1929. I finished college and then became a minister. I helped Black people who were being treated unfairly. My most famous speech is I Have a Dream. I gave over 2,500 speeches in the last years of my life. Also, I was a big fan of dancing. I helped change the world to make a better place.
Hello, my name is Selena Quintanilla. I was well known for selling almost 30 million records worldwide. That made me one of the best-selling female artists in Latin music. I was born in Lake Jackson, Texas on April 16, 1971. I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas around the age of 10 to 11. My parents, Abraham Quintanilla and Marcela Zamora. My father was a Mexican-American musician. My mother was part Cherokee. I have 2 older siblings, Abraham, my brother, and Suzette, my sister. I stopped going to school in 8th grade when I was 18. I earned my GED by taking courses through the American School in Chicago. Me and my family started a band called Selena y los Dinos. I started singing at a pretty young age. I went to elementary, junior high, but how I was the leader of the band, it took a lot of time. I grew up at Corpus Christi. I opened the door for other Latin females could start singing. I was a really big inspiration to other people. I changed the music industry in many different ways. I was the first female Tejano singer to ever have a large amount of success. I won the Grammy Award for the Best Mexican American Album in 1994. I sadly died on March 31st, 1995. After my death in 1995, my Warner brother produced a movie about me, life and rise to stardom.
Hi, my name is Maria Antoinette. I was born November 2nd, 1755 in Vienna, Austria. Although I did not bring much peace to the world, I'm historically known as the queen who said let them eat cake, although I never really said that. I was the last queen before the French Revolution. At 13, I moved to France to marry King Louis XV to bring peace between France and Austria. At 14, I was officially married to King Louis XV and later on had 4 children. Although I spent a lot of money on clothes and lived a lavish life, I still did some good in the world. I would occasionally help the poor and opened homes for unwedded mothers. I also had a love for children and adopted several in my lifetime. Things you might not know about me. When I was alive, women were to ride donkeys instead of horses because it was considered safer. So I would ride a donkey and go hunting with my husband, which was considered a men's sport. My husband, King Louis XV, was executed and I was imprisoned. I was meant to be executed the next day, but had a plan to escape. I was caught and sadly executed at 12:30 a.m. on October 16, 1755, at the age of 39.
Oh, ciao, buongiorno. My name is Galileo Galli. I was born in 1564 and I died in 1642, but I made a big difference in modern times. Let me tell you about my life. I was born in Florence, Italy, and lived with my parents and attended Alma Mater Studiorum Universite di Bologna till I was 10. Then me and my family moved to Pisa, and I was tutored in math there. Then, when I was 25, I was invited to join the University of Pisa. But at the school, I did not receive good grades, so I had to leave. After that, I continued to study mathematics and supported myself with small teaching roles. And I even started to study objects in motion. And I even wrote a book called Little Balance, which describes principles of weighing small objects, which brought me some fame. Then I had a relationship with Maria Gamba, but we never got married. But we had 2 daughters, Livia and Virginia. I also had an idea that Earth orbited around the sun, which the church didn't like, so I was put in house arrest for some of my final years. Then I got a fever of heart palpitations and died at age of 77. 3 fun facts about me. My daughters were nuns. My ideas weren't believed till 100 or more years after my death, and NASA named a spaceship after me. Arrivederci.
I am Ada Lovelace. I was born in 1850 in London, UK. My father was Lord Byron. When I was born, he called me an implement of torture. My parents were separated when I was 2 months old. Then, my father went to Greece to join the Greek War of Independence. He died possibly of malaria when I was 8. I never had a strong relationship with my mother. She referred to me as it. That did not stop me, though. From the age of 4, I was tutored in math and science. At the age of 12, I designed a flying machine. I wrote to my mother, I have got a scheme to make a thing in the form of a horse with a steam engine in the inside, so contrived as to move an immense pair of wings fixed on the outside of the horse in such a manner as to carry it up into the air while a person sits on its back. In June 1829, I got measles and was paralyzed. I was subjected to continuous bed rest for nearly a year, something which may have extended my period of disability. By 1831, I was able to walk with crutches. Even though I got sick, I developed my mathematical and technological skills. I have been called the world's first computer programmer. What I did was write the world's first machine algorithm for an early computer called the analytical engine. The analytical engine had 4 parts: mill, store, reader, and printer. They are in every computer to this day. The mill is called the CPU today. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. The mill is the calculating unit. Today, the store is called memory. The reader and printer are the input and output devices. The analytical engine is considered the world's first computer. When I was 17, I met Charles Babbage and watched him demonstrate some of his difference engine, which is an enormous mathematical calculating machine. He was my teacher. Mary Somerville, who was one of the best mathematicians of her time, also taught me. When I was 19, I married William King, who later became the Earl of Lovelace. By the time I was 23, I had 3 kids. I was often described as awkward when it came to social things. People at events complained I was boring in conversations because I only talked about math and science. I was more interested in math and science than impressing people with conversations or dress. If you would like to learn coding for free, go to khanacademy.org to learn. This is a picture of me when I was 4, me when I was 7. This is me as an adult. This is my flying machine. This is my work on the analytical engine. And this is the analytical engine itself.
Hi, my name is Peanut. I don't know when I was born, but I'm 1 year old. I like to poop in my litter box. I knocked down my poop. I once knocked down my food bowl. I make people clean everything up for me. I am spoiled. And I get mad a lot.